This is Autoline After Hours, unscripted, uncensored, unapproved. Are you a podcast kind of person? Then look for Autoline After Hours, wherever you go for your favorite podcast.
Autoline After Hours is brought to you by Bridgestone Tires, solutions for your journey, and by Borg-Warner, propulsion solutions that support a clean, energy-efficient world.
Hello, Mr. V.
John, how are you?
Doing pretty good. I'm a little bit run down. I've got what we used to call Kobo throat, and maybe we can get into that later in the show to explain it to our viewers. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I was at a fantastic show this week. You believe I'm going to say the Detroit Auto Show, but I was actually at IMTS in Chicago, which just is amazing. But
so
I
tell
also
me about International Machine Tool Show.
International Manufacturing Technology Show. Oh. So it goes far beyond machine tools. And
well, it used to be machine tools.
Come on, John. Let's get this is a 21st century. So yeah. So we were both at another show yesterday, the Detroit Auto Show, but it's phenomenal to see that McCormick Place completely filled with manufacturing stuff. Hardware, software, robots, 3D printers, lasers, just a whole panoply of stuff that makes it possible for us to have cars and trucks and refrigerators and airplanes and everything else. But so enough about IMTS, but yeah, big week for shows.
Big week for shows. Also in Detroit this week is what they call the Battery Show. And I'm told, because I, like you, was down at the Detroit Auto Show, the Battery Show was jam-packed. I'm told it was shoulder to shoulder all the way. You couldn't find a place to park. So it's a shame that they planned the Detroit Auto Show and the Battery Show at the same time, because if those shows were separated, I think the Detroit Auto Show might have gotten some of those attendees that went to the Battery Show.
You're quite right. Quite right. So we're going to be talking about what a big event that happened yesterday morning at the Detroit show with two of our colleagues. Let's bring them in. Bengt Halvorson, Green
and
Car
Joe
Reports.
Ciminillo.
Hi, gents.
Hello. Good to have you guys here.
So we are all NACTOY jurors. I actually have my official NACTOY shirt on, which you can now see here, because I figured I had to have a reason to wear it, right? And so yesterday, the semifinalists for this year's car, truck, and sport utility of the year were announced. And we're going to talk about those.
Did anyone see the announcement? I mean, I was at the show. I could not find the stage. I asked multiple people that worked at the show and others, where the hell is the announcement? Nobody knew.
It was back in a corner. I asked, I think probably like Secret Service agents, police officers, people who worked there, and nobody could point me in the right direction until I finally went all the way to the back and I found two people who were standing at a booth. And I was like, where is the stage where the announcement is happening? And they're like, I think it's back there. And I was like, you don't sound sure about that, but I'm going to go in that direction anyway. And I found it, but it was in a corner.
This sounds a lot like the LA show last fall, where I went to the NACTOY event there. There was a similar level of confusion for a short bit.
So Joe, you mentioned Secret Service. Now, the Secret Service weren't there just because John was there. Explain why the Secret Service were there.
So the Secret Service were there because President Biden decided to pay a visit to the show floor. And I don't know about you guys, but I didn't know about it until the day before. And so it was a bit of a surprise to me, and it was a little bit unexpected. And we had to kind of retool our plans for what we were going to be doing for the show professionally and what we were covering and the time period, because they basically shut down the floor for a 3-hour period in the middle of the day. And so the floor opened an hour earlier. There were security lines that were very long, although I got there at 7. So my security line was very short to get through. And then there were like dogs, there were Secret Service, there were security, there were all sorts of people everywhere to make sure that the building was safe. So
it went beyond the building. In fact, they closed down the Detroit River. So just for anybody who's never been to Detroit, the convention center is right on the edge of the river. And I was going to the media room, and I noticed that there were a bunch of police boats flashing lights and everything floating out in the river. And I said to somebody, one of the security people, what's going on? They said, well, they closed down the river. And I said, what do you mean they closed down the river? He says, look up and down the river. There's not a boat on it. And there was not. And, you know, that's an international crossing. That's an international waterway. There's typically freighters going up and down. There was nothing out there except for the police boats.
Well, I wasn't there, but I followed that speech, and it was a big UAW, IBEW homecoming type speech. And you know, it was sort of a victory lap, wasn't it, for some of these initiatives that the administration has been pushing for the past 18 months or so. The news bit that I got out of watching the speech was that they had timed that speech with the DOE release of funding to like 35 states to say, hey, you can start installing chargers now and tap into this federal funding.
So Bengt, that ought to make you excited with covering green cars.
Yeah. Oh, it's going to make a huge difference. You know, in a few years. It's always in a few years, right? We're curious, you know, what the timeline is going to be. It's a lot of hardware that needs to be built, and you know, some hardware makers like ABB have made big announcements saying, oh, we're establishing new manufacturing facilities to build all this hardware, but the hardware needs to be built. It needs to be installed. States need to still be designating more alternative fuel corridors, you know, where they can get this federal funding and install those chargers. And then it all needs to be wrapped in, you know, part of the big package in the first place was built, I forget the exact amount, but a big portion of the funding goes toward supporting connecting all of those chargers and making sure they stay online, and you know, making sure that it's all accountable, and that's going to be a massive task too. So lots of steps left in this, and you know, it's the federal government. So, and basically cracking a whip to all of these state plans. And if I've tried to dive into the state plans a little bit, and I discovered that the state plans that the state submitted to the federal government for this federal charging network, they're not to say that they're anywhere close to the same format. They use different language. They have different ideas. They're wildly different lengths and levels of thoroughness. And so we're going to have to see, as far as accountability, where this thing goes.
But it seems to be a move to advance this forward. So as you say, we'll see. All right, so this will be the format, and we did this last year. Maybe this will become an annual event the way we do this, that I will go through the list of the semifinalists, and I'll just give a brief synopsis of each of the vehicles, and then you guys chime in and give your impressions. Now, I know that none of us have driven all of these cars, but again, you still have some sort of sense of it. So starting in the alphabetical order with cars, the Acura Integra. So this is the return of the nameplate that helped launch Acura in 1986, but it went into hiatus in 2006. It's a 5-door liftback, 200 horsepower turbocharged Ford 4, and it's available in a 6-speed. So who wants to start? John.
Okay. Look, I think it's great that they brought back the Integra name. There's a lot of fans of that car. They were really miffed when Acura dropped it. I think they've done a credible job with this car, but it just didn't set my heart on fire. I mean, I'm not going to say that there's anything wrong with the car, and I can't say that there was anything that I disliked about it. It was a competent car, but it didn't set my heart on fire.
Yeah, John, I think I'm in the same boat as you. I took this car on the back roads. Had this a couple months ago. Took it on the back roads. Found the chassis tuning, the driving experience, the handling, really satisfying. It's everything it needs to be in those respects, in that context. What I ended up really wishing for, unfortunately, was I ended up wishing for the engine that they offered in these sorts of cars 15 years ago. I wanted that 8,000 plus RPM red line. I wanted the progressive build of power. And also when I took the Integra around the city, it was a little, it sort of reminds you that that's not really its element either. So it's a good, satisfying enthusiast car, with some asterisks, with some flaws maybe, but aren't enthusiast cars always flawed?
Jill, are you going to continue to damn with faint praise?
Well, so I haven't driven it yet. This is one of the vehicles I haven't driven, but I did do an article comparing the Integra to the top line Civic model, and I came away from that article thinking, why would I buy the Integra? Because it's just a little bit more, and there's really, to me, there wasn't anything super special about it. But again, I haven't driven it, and I haven't really spent time with it in person. So, I mean, maybe I'm missing something, but it just didn't seem like, it didn't set my heart on fire either, on paper. So I will agree with you guys.
Well, we'll have to see how it sells, because to Bent's point, it's lost that knife edge that the earlier Integras had. Those were much more raw, visceral kind of cars. This is bigger and more comfortable. Who knows? Maybe it'll sell better in the marketplace.
All right, before Acura starts crying, we got 25 more to go through, so let's keep that in mind, unless we're going to have part 2 of the show. All right, so Bengt, this is in your wheelhouse, the BMW i4 eDrive 40 sedan, 335 horsepower, rear drive, EPA range up to 301 miles with 18-inch wheels, and interestingly enough, only 282 miles with 19-inch wheels.
Yeah.
So I haven't driven it. I don't know that anybody else has. You probably have, Bengt.
I have, and this is one of those vehicles that it's not a dedicated electric vehicle. It doesn't have its own unique platform. It's built on underpinnings shared with internal combustion models. And so I have to put that out front, because when you get in this car, if you're in the front seats, it's great. But when you get in the back seats of the i4, you realize, oh yeah, this is what happens when we try to put this, this 4, 5, 6 inch tall, once you include cooling battery pack at the bottom of the car. You really end up, if you want that stylish low roofline, you really end up infringing on passenger space back there. And so that's the big flaw. I'll put it out there first. In almost every other respect, sorry. Tell
everyone how tall you are.
Oh, there's that too. Yes, I'm 6'6". And so that might have tainted my opinion a little bit, but
Joe would have been very comfortable back there.
I think you would have even
because I'm not 6'6".
I think you would even feel a little tight back there, Jill. But
I'm trying to think because I had the M50 i4 version, and I'm trying to remember if I sat in the back seat. There's not many places that I feel cramped in. I'm the other side of the spectrum. I'm 5 feet tall, so yeah, I can fit many places, and so I feel like I had plenty of legroom actually.
But Bengt, I think you made the real point. If you take an ICE platform and modify it to be a BEV, you end up with a compromised product on both ends, whether it's running on electricity or running on gasoline, and that's a porky car. It's heavy. and that's the reason why, because it's off a nice platform.
Yeah. In
All
almost
right.
every other respect, I find that car very satisfying, though. You know, it delivers on really more than 300 miles of range if the situations are ideal, and you know, they did a great job tuning it too. Given the format, they did well.
Okay. Genesis G80 EV. So here we have a 365 horsepower EV, standard with all-wheel drive. It has this interesting disconnector actuator system that can connect or disconnect the motor and drive shaft, enabling the vehicle to go between front-wheel drive and all-wheel drive to reduce unnecessary power loss. 282-mile range. Anybody driven this car? Well, Bengt's nodding. Jill's driven it. So, Jill, what did you think?
I really liked it. The one thing that I thought that was pretty remarkable about it, and this is another one of those vehicles that I don't believe is on a dedicated platform. But it doesn't have any EV badging on it. So, I mean, really, the only way you're going to tell this is an EV just by looking at it is the grille that's not actually a grille. But I thought it was really fun to drive, and I loved the fact that it didn't look weird. So I enjoyed it.
Yeah, this is the real stealth EV. None of your neighbors are even gonna get it until they see it plugged in. Then they might even think it's a plug-in hybrid. But it is extraordinarily quiet. Is one of the impressions that I was left with. It has so this car is a curiosity in the Hyundai Genesis Kia lineup, because yes, it is a carryover ICE platform, but the company has loaded it with some of its latest tech that it, you know, is otherwise putting in those eGMP dedicated electric vehicle platform cars, and the electrified G80 has the latest version of active noise control. So it not only adapts to the motor sounds and the rumble and that sort of thing, but also road noise. And it is exceptionally good at that. So it's really quiet. The powertrain and the efficiency of the powertrain and the range, I thought were top notch. Packaging is decent. You can tell again that they've thrown a battery pack under there. I drove.
All right, enough about that car. We're moving on to the we're moving on to another Genesis. We're gonna keep this thing moving. We're gonna go to the Genesis G90. Now, this is their flagship sedan. This is not an EV. It's got a 375 horsepower V6, or you can get that same turbocharged engine with an E supercharger, which brings it up to 409 horsepower. And, you know, Jill, you were mentioning about all the stuff that they threw in the G80. I mean, this thing is just phenomenal.
Like 11.
Yeah, exactly right. They turned it up to 11. I mean, it's an extraordinary vehicle. I just think that someone who has never been in a Genesis before that gets into this thing, they will not believe that they're sitting in a Korean vehicle. I mean,
I would agree.
Anybody else?
One of the interesting things I noticed about this is how quiet it is. I have a TikTok channel, and one of the things that I'll do on my TikTok is I just get into the car and start it up. And sometimes I don't even notice like what the sounds are or how quiet a vehicle is until I watch the video after I've already posted it. And with this video specifically, like I walk up to the car, there's like traffic noise and I think construction in the background, and you can hear it all. And then I get in the vehicle, I shut the door, and there's this and silence. And so Bengt is talking about silence in the G80, which is an electric vehicle. And this is a gasoline vehicle with a really, nice engine that is so luxurious. It's like you put on your sound canceling Bose headphones and like there is nothing. So I thought it was fast, it was quiet, and all of the luxury things, especially in the back seat. I spent some time in the back seat playing with the massage functions and the lighting functions, and like they even have a compartment in the back seat where you can put your phone in it and it like sanitizes it for you. So I mean, just like all of the stupid silly little things they put on this vehicle, I mean, and granted the prices are starting to creep up on Genesis, but I think this is still an amazing bang for your luxury buck. I loved everything about this car.
So it starts at 88.4 for those who are interested in going. Anybody else? No?
Just give
All right.
it a big thumbs up.
All right. So we're going to move on to the Mercedes C-Class. Now I've got to read the text from Mercedes about this because this is just, well, you'll get it. Welcome to a new, even more digital and efficient world, and welcome home. The new C-Class stands for both, and in all respects creates a future-proof comfort zone in a time of worldwide transformation. Then it goes on to say, the new C-Class is the first classic Mercedes-Benz model series to be fully electrified thanks to an integrated starter generator and a 48-volt technology. So I don't completely understand that. So it's a mild hybrid, and they're saying this is their first fully electrified vehicle. I don't get that.
I don't get it at all, unless they're talking about the first electrified C-Class. But you're right, Gary. I mean, they got these things called EQ something or other, and
which we'll get to in a minute. Yeah,
before they write the press release.
Mm-hmm. So has anybody driven this?
I've not.
No. Okay. We will. So just so everyone knows that in October we will be test driving all of the vehicles that we're talking about here at a comparison drive that'll be held in Ann Arbor in October. So,
and I believe relative to the current outgoing C-Class, this is a step bigger and heavier and more luxurious than the previous model, right? It kind of leaves some space below the C.
It's sort of interesting. So it is, as you say, it is a bigger vehicle. For example, they added 2.5 inches to the overall length of the thing. And then I was wondering about that. And then I read China has been the largest sales market for the C-Class since 2016. Mm-hmm. So there you go. They like cars bigger there. And so Mercedes responded appropriately. So John, moving on to what you were referring to, the Mercedes-Benz Eqe. This is a sedan with 410 miles on the Wltp protocol, which I'm sure Bengt can describe to us in great length. So I got to read another quote, and this is from Gordon Wagner, the Chief Design Officer of Daimler Group. The Mercedes Eqe is the next all-purpose electric luxury sedan with the typical one Bose signature design, creating fast lines and silhouette, though through that a very aerodynamic and futuristic look. All of this makes the car more flamboyant and entertaining, more extraordinary, and defines the next level of luxury for the Mercedes Eqe brand. I don't see any of this flamboyance in that car. Now, I haven't seen it in real life, but I mean, every picture I've looked at, I'm like waiting to find this exuberance. So, Bengt, tell us about quickly the Wltp protocol.
Well, let me just. So, all of our protocols build on test cycles, and let me just say that the test cycle that Wltp tests the cars to, it tends to be a little more lenient than the test cycle that the test cycles as a composite that EPA relies on. And so generally speaking, and this is a very rough generally speaking, EVs tend to go 15 to almost 30% longer in the Wltp range cycle than they do in the equivalent EPA tests. And so there are some conditions that Wltp ignores that EPA gives a lot of weight to, and so that's why you end up with that disparity.
Okay, moving on to our next vehicle.
As far as EQE, it's finally the Model S sized Mercedes sedan that's electric. So it's kind of a long time coming, because Mercedes used to own Tesla when the Model S was being developed. Finally, after all these years, I find it a curiosity, because it's like dimensionally very close to Model S.
Okay, next up, the Nissan Z. So this is the 7th generation of that car. It's got a 400 horsepower twin turbo V6. Comes standard with a 6-speed. It's available with a 9-speed automatic, and it retails from $39,990 to $52,990. I thought this was a blast to drive. I really enjoyed that car. John, what did you were not as enthused as I was about this vehicle?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think it's very smart for Nissan to bring back the Z car. I think it checks all the boxes from its external and internal style, interior styling. I think the performance is adequate. I think this is going to be for nostalgic boomers mainly. I wish it had really been an edgier car that set a new bar. I think it revives memories of the past and does it in a very competent way. But you know, it's very retro. It's not indicative of where Nissan's got to go in the future.
Well, we'll get to that future part a little later on in the show. So, Subaru WRX, the 5th generation rally icon, a new 271 horsepower, 2.4 liter turbocharged Subaru Boxer engine. So basically, this is a rally car that is for people who enjoy that sort of thing. Jill, you've done exuberant driving. Have you had the opportunity to be in this?
I have. And it's one of those vehicles that I like, but didn't like utterly completely love. So my husband and I own a GTI. And so that's like the arena that I'm coming from. And so whenever I get into a car like this, I always think, do I like this more than our GTI? And the answer was no. You know, it just, there's a lot of good things about it. You know, certainly more space in the back seat, maybe not for Bengt, but definitely for me. It's very nimble, and I had the manual transmission, and the manual transmission is really nice. But this is an all new vehicle for 2022. And there were some tech features that I thought were kind of lacking. And some of the tech features that were in there just didn't work as well as I wanted them to. And I don't know how much of that is chalked up to it's a pre-production vehicle and how much of it is longevity. But I don't know. There were just some things missing, like a digital display. I kind of wanted a digital display, even though I know a lot of people in this segment want analog gauges. But it just seems like there should have been something that could have been an option for that. I don't know. Like the Nissan Z had a completely fully digital display. So I liked it. I think it's a great car. You know, they don't have an STI. I see somebody was commenting about he's owned an STI for 7 years in the comment stream. They don't have an STI model anymore. And I don't think they're going to have one. So, I mean, it was just like it's a great car, but it wasn't my favorite.
Bengt, if you had one of the wilds of Portland where you live?
I have not been in a WRX yet. I consider myself a long-term Subaru fan. I think I've owned 3 of them. And I'm curious about this one. You know, the outgoing generation of the WRX, it was controversially embraced by enthusiasts. I'll say that. You know, it kind of became soft in some respects and still played to the crowd in others. So I'm curious.
All right. So if we go really fast, we can get the final 2 cars in before the commercial break. So let's the Toyota Crown. So this is the replacement for the Toyota Avalon. And what's interesting about this is that it comes standard with all-wheel drive, but there are 2 different hybrid powertrains. It's a hybrid-only vehicle. So one is the performance version, and one is the thrift version in terms of fuel efficiency. And what I find interesting is that they have what they call the lift up design. So it's supposed to look more like sort of a crossover-ish sedan. We haven't driven this. What do you guys think about this as being now? This is the top of the Toyota line.
Curious that they called it Crown, because it doesn't look like the historic Crowns that were Japanese market only of recent vintage. Why they dropped the Avalon name? I mean, because this is really slotting in where the Avalon had been. Did they consider that Avalon was for old people or something like that? And they wanted not just a fresh new design approach, but also a new name. I'm just curious about it. Can't wait to drive it. I'll bet it's a pretty good car, but just curious why they called it Crown.
It is very slightly dimensionally rejiggered, and my first gut feeling, I still haven't seen it in person, obviously, but my first impression was, Ford has done that before with the 500 and the Taurus, where they sort of cranked up the seating position a little bit and changed the proportions of sedans, and it kind of haunted them later, didn't it? But I also recently followed up with the Avalon Hybrid, and I thought, wow, how can this big, comfortable, luxurious 40 mile per gallon sedan get any better than this? And so, yeah, John, I'm also curious, how is this going to be?
Yeah, I was just in that Avalon Hybrid as well, and that's an amazing car. It's a sad thing to see it go. Okay, the final one, the Toyota GR Corolla. This is a 1.6 liter 3-cylinder turbo engine that produces 300 horsepower. It's an all-wheel drive vehicle that you can adjust the torque split. So for everyday situations, you can have 60-40. For sporty driving, turn the knob and have it 30-70. So again, this sounds like something, Jill, you might enjoy driving around, and you probably have enjoyed driving around in it.
Yeah. So I drove it a couple weeks ago, and this is a car I would replace my GTI with. I loved this car. The manual transmission is great. It sounds great. It's fast. It's compact. So I live in Chicago, so compact is kind of important for me. I loved everything about it. The driving position was great for me. Not so great. It's much better than the GTI. I don't know. I told my husband that when we're getting ready to replace our car, this is the first thing on our list. I love it.
Anybody else?
Love the specs. Can't wait to drive it.
Okay. All right. So I'm assuming we should go to the commercial break now before we move on to the trucks and utilities.
How do Bridgestone tires stop shorter on wet roads? It's their HydroTrack technology. But you don't have to know how the science works, just where the brake is. What really matters is their Bridgestone.
The world is changing at an ever-increasing pace. No matter what the mode of transportation, there is always the need for an efficient propulsion system. And that's exactly what BorgWarner has been doing since the earliest days of the automotive industry.
Okay, we're back. So I should mention that the preceding vehicles that we talked about, the jurors of the North American Car of the Year Awards had voted on from a longer list, and this became the semifinalists. Now, the 3 Truck of the Year candidates, because there are 3, there was no voting on these. These just basically are the 3. So I think people should be aware of that fact. The first being the Chevy Silverado Zr2. Comes standard with a 6.2 liter V8 and a 10-speed automatic. It has Multimatic DSSV spool valve dampers, front and rear e-lockers, specific off-road chassis and suspension calibrations, unique skid plate package, high approach steel front bumper, aesthetic cues, including a new black hood insert, unique grille, integrated lighting, wheel molding, ZR2 badges, and so on. Has anybody been in this? Jill has been in this. Okay. What'd you think?
I loved it. I do a lot of pickup truck and SUV reviews, and This was really fun. I was on the drive program for this, and so we did some off-road as well as some on-road driving. And the interior is a big improvement, and I liked how it looked. It handles, we like basically climbed up some like rock steps, and it did an amazingly good job. Obviously, this is a little bit bigger than something I would own in the city of Chicago. But for people who want a truck that looks good and has some really good rugged characteristics, I think it hit the mark. And this is a stupid, silly thing to like about a car, to notice about a car. But my big pet peeve lately in vehicles has been wireless charging, and it overheats my phone. And in the Silverado, it has a charger that kind of slots down, and there's like a cool pad with it. So every time I took my phone out of the charger, my phone was not hot and it didn't overheat. So I like the truck itself, but stupid simple thing, the wireless charging, they are the only automaker I found so far that got that one right.
That's wild. So Jill, compare the Chevy ZR2 to Ford Raptor and Ram TRX. What do you think?
Well, the Ram TRX, I think, is in a little bit of a different category all on its own with its, 710 horsepower. There's a lot of horsepower there. Yeah. And the TRX will not fit through a drive-through in Chicago. I can tell you that from personal experience. But as far as the Raptor and the ZR2, I mean, Ford people are going to buy Ford, Chevy people are going to buy Chevy. I'm just glad that Chevy finally put an offering that can be somewhat competitive. And previously, I don't know that any of their other packages were like competitive to the Raptor. And I think the Raptor is probably still going to be a better truck, but I think the ZR2 is really, really good. Now the Raptor R, that's going to be something we'll probably be talking about next year. That is a completely different story.
Also, I think this is a segment or a niche where Chevy just had to have something, right? Isn't this another one of those segments of the industry where even this boom and momentary supply issues aside, automakers can sell every single one of these very high performance off-road focused trucks that they can make, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So speaking of a somewhat high performance truck, the Ford F-150 Lightning. So it will either be a 452 horsepower or 580 horsepower with motors fore and aft. You can get 240 mile range or 320 mile range. Maximum payload is either 2,235 pounds or 1,952 pounds. And you can actually tow with the max trailer tow package 7,700 pounds or 10,000 pounds. So this is the F-150 EV that everybody in the world has been waiting for, and there's this big long list of people waiting to buy one. So Bengt, you've driven probably more EVs than the other three of us combined. What do you think?
Well, I had the Lightning a little while back and put probably 300 or 400 miles on it and just loved it. Thought it was fantastic. I mean, I don't think the line's going to get any shorter. It's going to keep getting longer. It is a very good truck, and I'm not necessarily a truck person. I appreciate trucks when they fit a purpose, and I can really see a lot of purposes for this one. I took it. I live in Oregon, and I took it up to a mountain ridge for sunset, and I was able to do it really quietly and not disturb the people who were already gathered there for the sunset. I noticed some other off-road trucks, booming up the hill and chugging, and I could just kind of quietly creep up the ridge. So I get electric soft off-roading, even if it's soft off-roading. I also got great range out of this truck, not driving it gently, headed to basically getting 300 miles out of the extended range pack. So I can see on multiple levels here, Ford just nailed it. Maybe did too good of a job, because they're just not going to be able to satisfy the orders for this truck.
What did you think, John?
I haven't driven it, so I'm dying to hear what Jill has got to say.
I think that it is a great EV. The jury's still out as to whether or not it's a great truck. I mean, anybody in the truck market knows that, a lot of people who buy a pickup truck wants the idea or the ability to do truck things. That means towing and hauling. And, as it is right now, when you have an electric pickup truck, you're probably only going to get about 100 miles of range if you hook up a boat or a camper or anything in the back. And while that might not seem like that bad of a deal, right now the charging infrastructure, especially where I live in Chicago in the Midwest, just doesn't support something like that. So if I wanted to have a Lightning and drive it up to Benton Harbor in Michigan, that's like probably about a 3-hour drive. I would have to stop and charge at least once if I were towing. And so that is where I think some of the angst might come in, is a truck owner who is going to buy a truck to do truck things might not necessarily consider a Lightning, but anybody who's an EV owner who is buying a truck, because they like the look of the truck or the way the truck drives, this is great. And one of the phenomenal things about the F-150 Lightning is it drives like a regular F-150. And, and it even has the little kick down window on the side. You can't really see it in the photo that's on the screen, but it has the kick down window, which then creates a big, the glass is really big and the visibility is great out all of the windows. And I have long said the Ford F-150 is one of the best pickup trucks out there for multiple sizes of drivers because of, the adjustable pedals and the ability to be able to see so well out of the window. So I think this is a great EV. I'm still undecided if this is going to be a great pickup truck, just because of like towing. If somebody's going to buy it for towing, that may not be great, but I loved it.
And finally, another pickup truck, the Lordstown Endurance, which, I had a difficult time finding information about, and because their website isn't all that helpful, surprisingly. So Car and Driver said, we're told the Endurance will make 600 horsepower. It has hub motors, which is different. Car and Driver estimates that it'll have a range of 250 miles. It'll tow 6,000 pounds. And I think that since none of us really know anything about this, we should just move on to the utility vehicles of the year, because there are a whole bunch of those. And this will be like completely in Bengt space. It's just unbelievable how many electric vehicles there are in this category. The first being the Audi Q4 e-tron compact SUV, 295 horsepower. It's got 82 kilowatt hour battery, all-wheel drive, in an estimated 241 mile range. I'm in love with Audi interiors. I think that, if we go back years ago, that used to be the benchmark. I think these guys have kept that up, which is not an easy feat since everybody has been aggressively making their interiors better and better. But man, I think they do a great job. But so anybody else have an opinion of the Audi Q4 e-tron?
Well, I haven't yet driven the Q4 e-tron, but I appreciate what it is and how Audi managed to get this in at a starting price of under $50,000. And it shares a lot with the Volkswagen ID4, but has an evolution of Audi's own interface. And one of my gripes, at least earlier on with the ID4, was its interface. And so I'm kind of looking forward to that sweet spot. A little more luxurious, somewhat more intuitive interface maybe, and not tremendously expensive like some of these other new luxury brand electric crossovers.
Which will bring us to the next electric luxury crossover, the Bmw Ix X Drive 50. I don't know where they come up with these names. So we were talking earlier about, so this apparently is this purpose-built platform. So this is BMW's. We talked earlier about sticking electric powertrains into existing vehicles. This is a clean sheet approach. So it's 516 horsepower, all-wheel drive, 0 to 60 in 4.4 seconds, EPA range of up to 324 miles with 20-inch wheels and only 305 miles with 21-inch wheels. So I guess, if you want to look somewhat cooler, you lose some miles. Bengt.
So this is like my what I would call wonderfully weird drive of the year. In that the longer I look at the iX, the sort of weirder I feel it looks. It is not a vehicle that sort of grows on me in appearance. I appreciate what they're trying to do. It's out there as far as design, outside and in. But after having one, I had one for a week. And over the course of the week, I did grow to like it, somewhat paradoxically, because of the way it drives. And it's just so successful as a luxury vehicle with a very cavernous, spacious, comfortable interior that does feel functional. After you live with it for a few days, everything does feel in the right place. It's different than how BMWs have been configured in the past, but it works really well. So it reminds me a lot of what the i3 was trying to pull off. It's just out there in a lot of ways, but people who live with them and drive them every day grew to love them. And so are people going to have patience to understand that nuance in the iX? I'm not sure, but I think it succeeds in a lot of things, and I was impressed with it in the end. Anyone else been in one?
Nope. All right, here's one I know many people have been in, the Cadillac Lyriq. So you can get the rear-wheel drive, 340 horsepower, all-wheel drive, 500 horsepower. The rear-wheel drive range is 312 miles. And this is the first on the Ultium platform that is actually out there in the wild. And John, I know that you're a big proponent of the Ultium platform, and I know that you like this car. Tell us about it.
Well, what I like about the Ultium platform is it's a clean sheet design for a BEV. And, most of the other legacy automakers have gone with modified ICE platforms. So that's why I'm a fan of the Ultium, as other automakers do the same clean sheet approach. I'll probably be fans of that as well. But I think what I was so impressed about with the Lyriq is it drives very well. It's got, I thought, a pretty good interface, although there were some quirks. Isn't there like a multi-screen thing that you got to go through just to open the glove box or something like that? It was weird. But what really impressed me the most about it is a completely clean sheet design, not just the skateboard. There is not one carryover part on that. There's not a switch, a lever, a door handle, a mirror, nothing is carryover. And I think that's going to pay off very well for them. I think one mistake that they made, though, they're coming out with this handbelt one, the Celestiq, which has got a lot of similar design cues. I've talked to a lot of people in the design community that think GM or Cadillac made a mistake in bringing out the Lyriq before the Celestiq. What they always say is you got to start with your best shot at the very top of the line, and then you can have other vehicles priced below it come out that tie into it. But to come out with a lower price one to be followed by a very expensive one, they say cheapens it. So just be interesting to see how that plays out.
Oh, come on, John. They can't sell $300,000, $400,000 cars, whatever you think that number for the Celestiq is going to be. I mean, they need to make some money with the Lyriq so they can afford all of these other things they're doing. So, Joe, what do you think about the Lyriq?
So I haven't driven it yet. I just saw it for the first time actually at the show yesterday at the Detroit Auto Show, and I was really impressed with the design. I think they did a really good job of taking the Cadillac signature like vertical headlights and taillights and integrating it into something that was new and innovative. And so I kind of really liked the design. I haven't driven the Lyriq, but I've driven the Bolt EUV that's on the Ultium platform. I've driven the Hummer EV that's on the Ultium platform. So I've driven a few vehicles that are on the Ultium platform, and I find them generally to be impressive. So I'm looking forward to the chance to driving the Lyriq, but I think it looks great.
Well, actually, just like correction, Bolt is not on Ultium.
The new one is when they replaced the batteries. Wasn't it?
Nope.
I thought they replaced it with because I remember one of the engineers saying that Bolt was going to be maybe it's going to be on the Ultium. But at any rate, Hummer EV I've driven with the Ultium. That I know has the Ultium.
That definitely does.
All right. So speaking of another purpose-built platform, the aforementioned eGMP that Bengt referred to, the Genesis GV60. So here we have another crossover coupe style. It's got either 314 or 429 horsepower, and you either can go for 248 or 235 miles in it. I mean, it looks great. Anybody drive this one?
Yeah, I've driven it, and I got to tell you, everywhere I went, people were asking about it. What the heck is that? And then I tell them it's a Genesis, and they go, cool. What's a Genesis? So, I mean, not only do they have this EV hurdle to overcome, they still got to get more of the Genesis name out of there. But look, this thing, to your point, Gary, it looks terrific. It's a standout vehicle from a styling standpoint. Drives terrific. They've got 3 driving modes, plus what they call a power button on the steering wheel. Punch that, and then punch the accelerator. This thing is wicked fast. I mean, wicked fast. And so that adds a lot of fun to your daily commute. So overall, I think this is a serious contender for utility of the year.
I agree with you, John. I found that boost button addictive. It's ridiculously quick, and we're not talking quick just in general as an EV, but quick relative to like the Mach-E GT or the Tesla Model Y Performance. It is a very quick EV. I found that it was a little. It doesn't feel connected design stylistically with the rest of the Genesis brand that well. But man, it sure is a head turner, and it's just a great driving EV and kind of a champion for turning heads and getting noticed as an EV.
All right, we're gonna have to
okay, sorry, go ahead, Gary. I know
we have to push the boost button here so we can move through the remaining ones. All right, so I'm going to be unfair to Honda here. So Honda's got 2. They've got the CR-V and the HR-V. The CR-V being the compact SUV, the 6th generation. It's got a 1.5 liter turbo, 190 horsepower. It, of course, is longer and wider because everything needs to be longer and wider. And it has a more rugged design than previous generation Honda CR-Vs have. The HR-V is the small crossover, the 2nd generation of that vehicle, 2-liter engine that produces 158 horsepower. And this one, I would argue, has a more stylish design. I think that this one is maybe the new look of Honda. I mean, I was shocked when I went in my driveway and saw this vehicle. I mean, it's just like, wow, this is so different. So what are your opinions of the CR-V and HR-V? Anybody?
Okay, well, I'll start, with the CR-V. I don't know. To me and a lot of other people, it looks like, or the HR-V, if you can go back a picture, it looks a lot like the Ford Escape to me. There's something about it. I can't put my finger on it exactly. I think it's a very competent vehicle. But again, this is not something that, set my heart a beating.
Yeah, I just had the HR-V a couple weeks ago, and I didn't love it as much as the previous generation. They took some of the because I think they've removed the seat that flips up so that you can, put the bike in the back seat. And the front seats, I drove from Chicago to Indianapolis and back. The front seats were really uncomfortable. And I had the leatherette seating surface, so it was not a cloth surface, which may have been softer, but I thought it was fine. I mean, I was in the top tier trim and it was $30,000. So, I mean, there was a lot of good stuff on it for $30,000, but I just missed the flip up seats and didn't think it was comfortable.
CR-V? Anybody? All right. So another vehicle that is on the aforementioned eGMP platform, this is the Kia EV6. So, I mean, I would say this is the most futuristic looking vehicle that is out there, but futuristic without looking like a caricature. I performance wise, I mean, I thought this was like the whole package. I don't know that you'd need another whether we're talking about, higher end vehicles or not. I mean, Bengt, what is your assessment of this vehicle?
I love the EV6. They're trying to market it in some respects as a crossover, but every time I look at the EV6, I think that's a great looking sport wagon, and it drives wonderfully. I can't wait for the GT. It's like 576 horsepower coming later in the year, but the GT line drives really well as it is. It's really efficient. It puts the company's best foot forward on that eGMP platform, and the charging. My one gripe, I guess, is regard to the charging. They've made that fastest sort of 18-minute, I think it's 18-minute, 10 to 80% charging. They've made it too challenging to access. Like you kind of have to get the feel for, I've heated the battery up enough to be able to tap into that. And they should give you a preconditioning button or something. I think that's on the way. That's
so what you're talking about
is a great package.
So they have this DC fast charging capability that you can get 70 miles in less than 5 minutes or 217 miles in under 18 minutes.
And if the battery's not heated up quite enough, like if it's raining outside, it's hard to get the battery up to that temperature. And you have to kind of drive aggressively for a few minutes before hitting the charger. Otherwise, it's going to charge too slowly. So, but maybe they'll fix that. I'm hoping.
Jill, have you driven this?
So I drove it at the Midwest Automotive Media Association rally. So it was like literally one of those little 10-minute, 20-minute spins, and I liked it. I would say so it's built on the same platform as the Ioniq and the GV60. And I would say of the three, I really like the GV60 the best.
Yeah, I spent a week in it. I really like this car. It's a big car. I mean, the pictures don't do it justice. You get inside, it's I'm not going to say cavernous, but it's a whole lot bigger than you might expect. I loved it. I think the Hyundai Group is doing a terrific job when it comes to EVs. I hadn't picked up on that battery conditioning that you're talking about there, Bengt, because I had it in beautiful summer weather, so I didn't have to worry about the temperature of the battery, but it did charge a whole lot quicker than a lot of the other EVs that we've had in here.
The Kia Sportage, so all new Sportage, completely new design. They've got several trim levels, including the one that you can see on the screen here, which is their X package, which would probably excite Jill because it has off-road capabilities. It's a bigger vehicle than it was before. Jill, tell us about what your responses to this vehicle are.
So I really like the way it looks. I think the design is stunning. I have a video coming out where I just looked at the night lights, like the lights at night. Like often when we're driving the vehicle, we're driving it during the day, but sometimes you want to see what it looks like at night. And at night, that daytime running light and the headlights, it just, I don't know, it looks really good. The one comment I had about the vehicle in general is the base powertrain to me is just a little bit too basic. I wanted something with just a little bit more pep to it, just maybe like the turbocharged engine. But the interior looks great. It drives really well. It's, it's an attractive vehicle. And I think Kia did a great job with this. I mean, they've been doing a great job with all of their designs lately, frankly.
Mm-hmm.
I
happen to be in the Sportage Hybrid right now. Something I'm having trouble getting over is just how differently they ended up being able to tune and style this car, this crossover versus the Hyundai Tucson, with which it's closely related. It doesn't feel anything like the Tucson in driving. It's tuned to its handling is tighter. The interior is beautiful. There's some carryover interface points from the EV6. So far, I'm really liking it.
Good. Okay, next on the list is the Lexus RX, the 5th generation of the crossover. Now, there's three powertrain offerings. One is a 2.4 liter, which gives you 275 horsepower. One is a hybrid that combines a 2.5 liter engine with electric motors, gives you 246 horsepower. And then there's the performance hybrid, which basically combines a 2.4 liter with the electric motors to get you 366 horsepower. It still has the Lexus look, but unlike the fourth generation vehicle, it seems to be much smoother, rounded, less edgy than it had been before. Anybody drive this one? No.
Not yet.
I did. And it's, so basically Lexus RX created that category of luxury crossover vehicles, and Toyota is all about continuous improvement, and it may not be huge differences, but boy, those increments really add up, and they did a very nice job on that.
Gary, did they let you drive the version with the Direct 4 system, the sort of more performance-oriented one?
That's the third one on the list. Yeah, so we had all three powertrains.
Gotcha.
That
even better?
It depends on what you're looking for. I mean, I'm still one of these people who sort of think that if you have a hybrid, that the hybrid really ought to be about efficiency and not so much about performance. And so it's just like, yeah, okay, you go fast. But, generally when you're driving to work or you're driving to the grocery store, you're just driving, right? You're not going crazy fast. So
I'm going crazy fast when I go to the grocery store. I don't know what you do.
yeah.
That's good.
You live in Chicago, Jill. All right.
Probably.
Mazda Cx-50 compact SUV. It's built on the Mazda 3 platform, 178 horsepower, 87, sorry, 2.5 liter 4, or you can get a turbo version. They get you 256 horsepower. Again, Mazda's now gone for the more rugged styling. When we go back to that Honda CR-V with more rugged styling. So Jill, do you see these people doing all this rugged styling because they want to appeal to you?
Probably. And so what's really interesting, I think, about the CX-50 is, I kind of think that this is going to push the CX-5 out, even though Mazda says it's not. And they're like, there's space for both of them because the CX-5 is elegant and the CX-50 is rugged. Well, the CX-50 is both elegant and rugged. And I drove the CX-5 and then I went and drove the CX-50. And I liked the CX-50 even more. I think it looks better. It's smoothed out a little bit. It looks a little bit more elegant. And then it has the more rugged capability, in addition, in my opinion, to looking nicer. And it has some more of the up-level features. I think it's got the automatic reverse braking. It's got the heated steering wheel. It's got all of the nice luxury amenities that people are coming to expect and desire. But I mean, you're not going to do the Rubicon Trail in this vehicle. Let's be clear. Like, this is just more of the, I'm going to a campsite a little bit off-road kind of vehicle. But it does that really well. And we've started to, with the recent uptick in overlanding, we've started to see more vehicles adding like a rugged trim or a rugged version, or like the Subaru Wilderness models, and just to give it just a little bit extra, a little bit more. And it's a little bit lifted, and it's not a huge lift. I want to say it's like maybe a half an inch. Don't have those numbers in my head, but it's just a little bit higher, and it's got some bigger tires and some, I don't know. So I drove it like on a dirt road. I think I didn't do anything crazy on it, but it did well, and I like the way it looks. I like it better than the CX-5, and I didn't think that was possible.
John, I think you drove this car, didn't you?
I did. I spent a week in it, and I got a little bit different take than Jill does on it. When I went out to the parking lot and the car was there, I thought, wow, it's much more upright and formal looking, and it's lost some of that poise and grace and flair that Mazda's got in its cars. And then I got in it and drove it. And before I was even out of the parking lot, it was like, wow, this car feels so much heavier than any Mazda I've been in. The steering effort is heavier. Not that it was bad, but, by the time I got a block away, I went, wow, this is the anti-Sky Active Mazda. And then it hit me. It's built on a Toyota platform. That's what's changed everything. This is not pure Mazda Sky Active. This is Mazda bodying a Mazda-looking vehicle on top of Toyota technology. And that's why I think it's probably the hard points on the car have dictated what some of the styling would be, the weight, the tuning and all that. It's very un-Mazda-like from any Mazda I've been in recently.
Yeah, that was so I've driven the CX-50 as well, and I am a big fan of the CX-30, which I believe the CX-50 is based on the CX-30, but with contributions from Toyota. Is that right? I didn't go to this launch.
No, isn't this the one that's built down in the south?
Yeah, it's built in the new factory.
Yeah, it's so. I know they say that it's all separate. I thought I felt a lot of Toyota DNA in this vehicle.
But my impression...
all right. We got to go. We got 3 left, and we're overtime. 3 left, okay. And Bengt, they're going to be all in your wheelhouse. So just the Nissan Aria, a crossover that's an EV that's built on a platform it shares with Renault. It sort of looks to me like a Murano, but maybe that's just me. It comes in front-wheel drive, all-wheel drive versions. You can get a 63 kilowatt-hour battery, 87 kilowatt battery. It's got a base version that gets you 216 miles. Then you can go up to 238 miles. Then you get to a top model that'll give you 389 horsepower, but they don't tell you what the range is. I don't think any of us have driven this vehicle yet. You have, Bengt?
Okay. Yeah, I have. I've driven it in front-wheel drive form earlier in the year, and this is one of my most eagerly anticipated vehicles of the year. It's a big step up a big step ahead for Nissan. It's built on CMF EV platform, which is kind of related to the CMF that underpins like the Rogue, but also a step ahead in many respects. And it's just really impressive inside for packaging, because it steps up to different switch gear, different displays, just that different sort of look and feel that we've all been hoping Nissan will jump to for a while, and it has here. It's great. It has haptic switch gear that works. Nice, sort of warm wood tones inside. It's also super refined and quiet and handles well. And I think it's going to carve out its own little corner in that very crowded EV crossover space. So hopefully, I believe it's arriving late fall.
Okay. Anybody else? Oh, down to 2. The Rivian R1S 3-row SUV, 128.9 kilowatt-hour battery pack for 316 miles, up to, and this is astonishing, 835 horsepower, and you can tow 7,700 pounds. So, Jill, this seems to be focused at that whole towing thing you were talking about earlier.
Well, I mean, there's no question that you can tow with an EV. I feel like with the Lightning, you can tow up to like 9,000 pounds, 12,000 pounds. Like, you can tow with them. You just can't tow very far.
10,000.
So I think I haven't driven this, I'll be honest. And I've only sat in the R1T, the pickup truck version of it. I think it's a great idea. I think that this is one of those companies similar to Tesla that's going to move the EV needle in a different direction, because they'll have different technologies. Like I haven't really looked too in depth at this vehicle yet, but like the R1T has the gear tunnel. Everybody talks about the front trunk, where you put stuff, but the R1T had the tunnel behind the rear seats. So I'm not sure what innovations are going to be here, but I mean, it looks like a good idea on paper. I haven't driven it. Have you driven it, Bengt?
I haven't driven the R1S. I've driven the R1T.
Okay.
And yeah, just like Jill said, there's this big, great emphasis from Rivian on packaging. They do package. They've done packaged in some real innovations for people who are, especially for people who are adventuring and camping and just trying to get outdoors. And so what Rivian has placed an emphasis on, it seems, is, getting chargers out there for one, but then secondly, to really foster this ecosystem of accessories that's kind of, it's a lot like what Jeep's doing in making sure that from the get-go that all of their vehicles have all of these accessories on the ready for active types.
John?
I haven't driven it. Kind of interesting just looking at that picture. Reminds me a lot in silhouette of the Jeep Grand Wagoneer. At least in that shot, it does. Look, I think they did a very competent job with the pickup. More than competent. I think they've done an excellent job. I think this vehicle should be even better since it's another year behind the pickup.
All right. And so the final, last but not least, the Volvo C40 Recharge, small luxury SUV. It's got 2 motors for a combined 402 horsepower. All-wheel drive, estimated 225-mile range. I find this has a very interesting interior. It's leather-free, and they do different patterning and lighting, and I think they did a very interesting job on the interior. Comments?
I drove the car, liked the car a whole lot. I love the fastback look, but boy, that just eliminates all rear view visibility. It was horrible from that standpoint. But Volvo's been, first out there planting the flag amongst many of the legacies going EV. Says it's going to be all electric in 2025. So far, they're doing a pretty good job. And this is indicative of what they're going to be needing to have in their showrooms if they are truly going to go all electric in less than 3 years.
Yeah, I drove this. I've driven this a couple of times now, and I really like it. Again, it fits into my compact Chicago lifestyle really well. But the compromises here. So you have the XC40, which has the more like upright tail end, and then you have this with the fastback, and they're, I believe, built on the same platform. And the compromise that you get with this one, even though they're essentially the same size, is going to be cargo volume and rear seat headspace, frankly. So putting somebody like Bengt in the back seat is going to be a no-go. I feel like I had somebody who was about 6 feet tall sit in the back seat, and like they had to do one of those sideways maneuvers to get in, and then you couldn't see their face because it was underneath the sloping roof line. And I get in. I always say I'm the size of your average 10-year-old. I got in and it was fine, but it was definitely a little bit closed in. So for somebody who is single or is a couple that doesn't have kids, I think that's going to do really well. But once you start moving into a family lifestyle, it's going to be a tougher sell. But I like the technology. It's a Google-powered operating system that really works pretty well. Voice activated. I like not having to touch things when you're driving. Hey, Google, navigate me to blank. And it works really well. It's one of the best voice operated systems I've encountered so far. So I really liked it. I like the interior, the topographical map on the dash inserts, what is it, fjord blue interior, or that they call it. I don't know. I love the kicky colors. And I thought it was a great vehicle. I really enjoyed it. The range is
Bengt, final word.
I think I like the way those vehicles are packaged. They're small compared to the rest of the EV crossover entries, so there's not a clear place for them in the US market, but maybe that's the point. They have this sort of urban appeal that some of those rivals don't, that are quite a bit larger. And I just John, I agree, especially with the detail of the vehicle. They've just got a lot of those up close details right, and that makes a big difference.
Okay, thank you. So to wrap this up, okay, does anybody want to make any predictions of who the winners will be? I'll predict the Lightning wins truck. I'm going way out on a limb there, but
yeah, I will agree with you on that.
Yeah, I'll agree with you on that. I don't know about the others though. Very tough field, very close competition.
Well,
I think
very interesting competition because, I mean, especially in the car category where you have something like the Nissan Z and the GR Corolla, going up against, the EVs, the EQE and the, the G80 EV. So there's like some huge disparity there. So it's like, is it going to go green? Is it going to go like last hurrah for your manual transmission, performance oriented vehicle?
I was noticing yesterday that NACTOY is at kind of an odd equilibrium or tipping point with entries this year by powertrain. That exactly half of the semifinalists are full EVs, and we should just kind of pause and sigh and take note of that. It's a kind of a big moment.
Good point.
Well, we've run way long, and for those of you who have stuck with us, thank you. And Jill, thank you for joining us. Bengt, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Fascinating show, John.
Yeah, no, and next week, just to plug that, we'll have Tim Kuniskis here talking about Dodge going all electric.
He is the CEO of Dodge, in case people are wondering who Tim Kuniskis is. So anyway, so
well, good. Thanks, everybody.
No, thank you, guys.
Autoline After Hours is brought to you by Bridgestone Tires, solutions for your journey, and by Borg Warner, propulsion solutions that support a clean, energy-efficient world.
If you like this program and would like to learn more about the automotive industry, check out our website at autoline.tv or look for us on YouTube on the Autoline channel.